We'll begin with a reign of terror. A few murders here and there.
Welcome back to the Swearwolves. I'm Bret.
I'm David.
David.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You know what it is?
What is it?
It's the first goddamn week of winter.
It is in the northern hemisphere.
In the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, fuck them. But
fuck their summer.
It's the first goddamn week of summer. It's the first week of winter. I know here we're recording this before the first week of winter, I don't know, pull back the curtain, see how the magic happens. But it has snowed where I live.
I know. I've been seeing lots of snowy photos from you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Winter wonderland over there.
It's quite the departure from what you have. Although it's been cold.
It's been cold by Arizona standards lately.
By any standards, I think. 35 degrees in the morning is
low 30s is pretty damn cold. I've had to scrape my car several times this week before going to work because I don't park in the garage because I'm an idiot.
Do you have a scraper?
I have a credit card, Bret.
Okay, because I hear in Pennsylvania they sell them, like the scraper and the brush and that kind of happy horse shit. In Arizona, they don't have those like at Walmart. You can't just go down and pick up a snow shovel or
you got to improvise.
If it snowed there, you guys would be fucked.
Oh yeah, we'd be totally screwed.
People in general don't know how to drive in Arizona.
Even when it rains, like people are like, "Oh, what do we do? I better drive 30 miles an hour." One
time I spit out the window and someone slammed on their brakes because they didn't know what to do in Arizona.
Moisture.
It was awful. But it snowed here. It's a winter wonderland. We've talked about this, like what movie we were going to do, and for this week, we had our Christmas episode last week, and to round out the year, and we thought about a New Year's Eve type of movie and everything. But there was a movie that we've talked about since I think episode 1.
Yeah, like pretty early on.
And we actually did an episode. I want to say it was like episode
4, maybe.
Yeah,
where we actually did
talked about this movie.
Yeah.
But we never really fully reviewed the movie. We never went through it like we do now with the beats and all that happy horse shit. I've said happy horse shit now twice, so
it's my new favorite phrase. I'm going to use it later.
I don't know why that's in my head, but whatever. It doesn't.
I like it. Happy horse shit. Try saying
happy
it
horse
today.
Shit, everybody. We never have done that. So, to stop bearing the lead, The Thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
1982, John Carpenter's The Thing. Now, this movie, before we talk about the movie itself, let's talk about your first experience with this movie. And you've said it on the podcast before, probably in that episode, but we've been doing this for 4 fucking years now. So maybe someone just hit play and this is the first episode they're listening to.
What if my story completely changed because I just made it up the last time and I forgot and I made up a new version?
That would be awesome.
No, I remember I was probably 8 years oldish, and I remember my mom, I think, had gone to bed. And I asked my dad, I was like, "Hey, can we watch something scary?" And he's like, "Okay, well," and he probably suggested like a couple like kid-friendly movies, and I was like, "No, something really scary. Like, what's a really scary movie?" And he was like, "Ooh, I got one for you." And then he went and grabbed we had it on VHS. He went and grabbed it and we watched it. And then
did he have the actual VHS?
No, I think it was Macrovision taped off of a rental or something.
Pan and scan, like
it wasn't off a TV though, because it was uncut.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, because I was like, "Oh wow, they said fuck."
Can you imagine if your first experience was the TV version of it? Because we both know what the TV version is like.
Yeah, or the one with are you talking about the one with the narration?
Yeah,
no,
like,
this movie's weird.
Copper.
Dr.
He's
Copper.
the resident doctor.
This is McCready, helicopter pilot.
Got a bad chip on his shoulder, and it's a force to be reckoned with. This is
Bennings. He's impotent. His dick doesn't work. He's like, wait, what?
Wait, I don't think that's in the script, John. Just go with it. what we're talking about, for those of you who don't know, is that the movie John Carpenter's The Thing obviously aired on TV because that's what happened back in the day. All movies like aired on ABC at one point or another. And he didn't do this, but the studio did a TV edit, and they did a weird narration over the beginning.
So
There's no
weird.
narration in The Thing.
No.
And they introduced all the characters. I think they go through all of them. I don't know. They go
They
through
go
all
through
the
at least
big
most
ones.
of them, like explaining like what their role is at the
Yeah, and
camp.
it's just really weird because it's also weirdly like paced.
Yeah. You
Because-
don't get it all at once. You get it like as like the first time you see the person.
Yeah, so it could be 15 minutes into the movie, and they're like,
This is
Knowles.
Knowles.
It's roller skating, listening to
He roller skates.
Superstition.
He cooks the food. He likes Stevie Wonder.
Windows. Hates being a radio operator. Hates being here. McCready, a top helicopter pilot, worked for Hughes Aircraft as a test pilot until he got into a confrontation with top management and resigned to take this assignment. Giles, a mechanic who went from trade school to the airlines. None better. Gary, a 30-year Army man who worked up through the ranks to become an officer. Likes the job of station manager. Clark, in charge of the dogs, doing a study on the effects of extreme cold on animal behavior. Dr. Copper, graduate of Harvard Medical School. Bennings, meteorologist, an old pro. Blair, a pioneering microbiologist. Palmer, second-string chopper pilot. Norris, geophysicist, was a professor at Caltech. Knowles, inventive cook, a product of Watts. Interested in the Antarctic. Fuchs, assistant biologist, who worked with Blair at the Rockefeller Foundation.
So that was when you're about 8, 9 years old. I'm kind of the opposite. I didn't see this movie when I was young. Well, I was young by today's standards in my book. I was in my 20s when I saw this for the first time. And I remember my mom's now husband, they were just dating at the time, but we were having a movie night. Mm-hmm. And he suggested we all watch that movie.
That's when your mom realized he was a keeper.
That's when she
Went,
said yes.
I'm gonna marry that man. I'm gonna marry him.
So yeah, that was the first time I had watched it. And I remember thinking, wow, I should have watched this before. Like, I don't know why I hadn't watched it, but I wasn't like a huge fan.
Right.
I liked it, but I wasn't like a huge fan. And it wasn't until I met you, actually, and we started hanging out, and you started telling me about your undying love for The Thing. And I whipped it out, and you're like, not that thing. And I was like, oh, okay.
Put it away. Put it away slowly.
Take it back out. Put it back in.
Put it back in, yes. Flop it around a little bit. Do the helicopter spin. Oh, no. There's my McCready. Where's my little helicopter pilot? Me.
Put a sombrero on it.
Yes.
But you and I, and we'll talk about this later, but you and I went out to Son of Monster Palooza. It was like one of the first times we had really hung out, like outside of like just a group of people. And I kind of was helping you out because you had a bunch of things that you wanted to get signed. And so I was like, said, oh, I'll volunteer and carry it all for you.
Thanks,
so
man.
you don't have to be encumbered by all these posters and stuff. And I wasn't really collecting a lot back then. And this was before even the podcast.
Yeah. This is like 2017, I think.
And all the cast of The Thing was there. And Wilford Brimley, probably his last show that he went to before he passed away. And we went around meeting everybody, and I got to thinking when I got home, I'm like, I should watch that movie again. So I had a copy of it because I had like John Carpenter DVD set that had They Live, which was my favorite John Carpenter film. And still one of my favorite John Carpenter films, but The Thing was on it. So I popped that in, and I was like, God damn, this is a really
This
good
movie's
fucking...
good.
David's right. David's a keeper. I think I'm going to marry that man.
I'm gonna marry him.
And so now, and since that moment, I've probably watched it, I don't know, every 3 to 6 months.
Same.
I've
seen that movie so... It's probably the movie I've seen more than any other movie.
I've
It's
definitely
up
watched
there.
it 4 times this year alone.
Yeah, I'm probably about the same.
Because things were happening, and I was like, oh, I want to watch that movie. And so I'd put it on. Sometimes I put it on just in the background
Yeah, same.
as I was working on stuff. So, by the way, I couldn't find my copy.
Oh, really? So did
And
you
I
have to
was like, fuck.
rent it?
I had to rent it. And
You
as soon
fool.
as I got done watching it,
You found it.
I found the copy.
Of course.
Fucking asshole. Let's go through this. We'll talk more about some other non-movie but thing-related things later on. But John Carpenter's The Thing came out in 1982. Notoriously a flop.
Yeah.
For John Carpenter at the time. But he was riding high on the hog from other movies that he had directed and were huge successes. And I think he got this, opportunity to direct The Thing, a movie that he had liked when he was growing up, the Howard Hawks version.
Right.
And so he did. But this movie was released on June 25th, 1982. I just turned 5 years old, by the way.
Aww.
11 days prior, I had turned 5 years old.
I was 1.
I
was about to turn 2. I was shitting my pants.
What was the number one movie in the theater at this time, David?
I'm pretty sure I know this one. It is E.T.
It definitely was E.T. And E.T. was a movie that I did see in the theater.
Nice.
In fact, I saw it at the drive-in twice. Once with my mom. My mom and dad were divorced. I saw it once with my mom and once with my dad. I fell asleep both times. So
I probably saw it in the theater. I was probably like the screaming baby.
yeah.
Yeah, I was that guy.
Oh. Number one song. Now you could go 2 for 2. You could get both of these right. I don't know if you will, but it's definitely a song you know.
Okay. The one I picked, I don't think I'm gonna get this because I think it was the number one song the day my wife was born, but she was born in August of '82. So I don't think the song had that much staying power. But I'm going with "Eye of the Tiger" by Survivor.
That song is fucking awesome.
It is,
and that's from Rocky 3, which I've talked about this recently. My love for Rocky. Rocky 3 is probably one of my favorite ones.
Yeah,
it's so fucking cheeseball at some points, but it is so fucking awesome.
Dude, quick, did I ever tell you? I may have told this story before, but there was a time it was my wife's birthday, and she was coming home, and I looked up like that. That I saw like, oh, that's the number one song on her birthday. So when she got home from work, I was standing at the top of the stairs, and I had moved my guitar amplifier up there. And as she walks in, I do the digga 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 digga, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And then she shuts the door, and I go, "Don't." And she like puts her stuff down, and I go, "Don't." She's like, "Oh, that's very funny. Please put that away." I was like, "You want to see my helicopter pilot? Happy birthday!"
You were naked, just the guitar covering yourself. She's like, "I've never heard that song in my life. What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
She's like, "That was the number one song when I was born. Okay, like I don't care about it now." The number one song was actually "Ebony and Ivory" by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder.
Ah.
So I remember that. Now I do remember this song, and I remember the video. And for some reason, I have a memory of it being on HBO, because and I think it probably was because MTV wasn't. If it was out, it wasn't a big deal, or it was just barely coming out. But in between movies on HBO, sometimes a movie would be an hour and 47 minutes long.
Yeah, would they play some music videos?
They would play shorts or they'd play a music video. And for some reason, I remember seeing Ebony and Ivory, because we had HBO for some reason. I remember seeing Ebony and Ivory, the music video, and I was like, oh, this song is awesome. I was like, Paul McCartney, Stevie Wonder. I was a kid of the 80s. I loved them.
And Stevie Wonder's got a song in this movie. This is the most we've ever talked about Stevie Wonder, I think, in an episode.
It is. It'll probably be the last time we talk about Stevie Wonder. Oh, real quick. Speaking of which, Stevie Wonder has a song in this movie, Superstition, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about that. Knowles is playing it on the radio. Recently, I purchased a jukebox.
Oh, yes, you did. And it's awesome.
It was kind of an early Christmas present for myself and my wife, too, because she really likes it also. And I got a good deal on it. And for those of you who are like, oh, a jukebox, somebody is,
Fucking boomer over here.
Yeah. What are you, Elon Musk? Got a jukebox. No, I got a jukebox. I bought it not working. A lady's father had passed away, and apparently he used to tinker on jukeboxes and whatnot, and he had a few of them, and this was one of them. And she was selling his stuff, and she sold it for $250.
Nice.
Which, not working, to me, that's a good deal.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
And I think it's a fair price. Some people are like, jukebox, that's $1 million if I do say so myself. And it's a 1980s something era jukebox, so it's not those cool like bubble ones or anything. But got it home, and all I had to do was like I've worked on arcade games and pinball machines before, so I kind of know a little something.
Easy fix.
Yeah, I just had to hook up the arm and put a new needle on, and it worked.
Nice. You're like Mr. Fix It over here.
Yeah, I was like,
I feel
babe,
like
don't
Palmer,
worry. What else
mechanic.
needs to be fixed? Yeah, exactly.
Palmer.
I started doing my own narration.
Bret fixes jukeboxes. Huge dick.
My wife just comes out and shakes her head.
I'm going to fact check this in real time.
So I was messaging David. I bring this up because I was messaging David, and I was like, I want to get singles, 45s. That some of them I got like The Man Behind the Mask. I already had that 45 from Friday 13th Part 6. I also bought Dokken, Dream Warriors. But I wanted to get some songs that maybe were just songs, but they were made famous by horror movies. So David and I had this whole conversation, and he said Superstition, and I got that. Nice. So I have that on 45.
Cool. I'm jealous, man. I want a jukebox.
You should get one.
I have no room. But I did get jealous enough that I bought myself a new turntable after you bought your jukebox. So I did upgrade what I had.
And then you told me you bought a new turntable, and I started looking at turntables.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Nice.
We're not good for each other, David.
We
constantly cause each other to spend too much money.
Well, the one I got, highly recommend. You should get that. It's awesome.
Yeah. I looked at that one. That one's a little bit out of my budget.
Nah.
You're kind of an audiophile.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm like, but I do want one that's better than the one that I currently have, because the one that I have is kind of like an introductory, like,
That's how mine was.
You want to listen to vinyl? Here.
Yeah. Here you go. This will do that.
Yeah. And I'm like, cool. So we'll see.
Cool.
Anyway, John Carpenter's The Thing. Now I'm going to refer to it as The Thing from now on, although like the real title is John Carpenter's.
Yeah, we can drop the John Carpenter.
Yeah, because they did a requel that we discussed. Probably 2008, 2010, somewhere around there.
2011, I think. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, we'll just say 2010, plus or minus a few years. And they called that movie The Thing.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
Which makes it complicated, because then everybody's like, it's a remake, but it's not a remake. It's a prequel. So requel. But we'll just call this one The Thing. It was written by Bill Lancaster and based on the story Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. Now, a lot of people think that this was a remake of the Howard Hawks, The Thing from Outer Space, but it wasn't, because The Thing from Outer Space was based on this book or this story Who Goes There, and this was more based on that story. And from what I hear, it's more closely aligned to the story.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really close. I actually had it.
Did you read it?
Yeah, I've read it. It's really good. It's short too. It's only maybe a little over 100 pages. It's a quick read.
Yeah, I think it's one of those like pulp
novella
kind of
thing. Like I read it in an afternoon. It was good.
Okay. Have you ever seen The Thing from Another Planet?
I have. I own
or
it.
Thing from Outer Space? I think is what it's. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
There's some nods in this movie and some similarities, but this one is definitely more like the book.
The Thing was directed by John Carpenter with music by Ennio Morricone, who passed away just a couple years ago in 2020, but did music for The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, probably one of the most notable scores that he did. But even up until recently, he did The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, he was prolific.
Yeah. So he did, spanned.
And The Hateful Eight has a lot of unused cues from The Thing.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
That's
so
funny.
like it's weird. If you listen to music, you can kind of hear it. Like, oh yeah, this definitely has something in common with The Thing.
Now, The Thing, John Carpenter did not score this movie, obviously, right? But he had some input on the style and the themes that he was going for. Morricone didn't see the movie, did he?
No, I don't think so. I think he gave him cues that he had kind of written just with Carpenter's input.
Yeah.
And I think Carpenter secretly also recorded some stuff. So I think there is some of him and Alan Howarth on there, but I mean, it's credited as Morricone.
Yeah.
And it's mostly Morricone.
Yeah, but you can definitely hear the John Carpenter influence on it.
Yeah.
In fact, before I knew it was Morricone, because I was kind of ignorant to the whole thing, I thought it was John Carpenter.
It sounds like Carpenter,
Yeah.
other than some of the more orchestral stuff.
Yeah. Like the simple thing, like the main theme,
Right. Sounds
I
very
think
Carpenter.
is very Carpenter. This movie was produced by David Foster and Lawrence Terman, and it stars, and I'm going to go through these characters. I think we should go through these characters because I think it's important.
Right.
All these characters have a role in this movie. It's not just like, guy 1, guy 2. There's definitely purposes behind all these characters. Top billing is, of course, Kurt Russell plays R.J. McCready. He's the helicopter pilot. I'm not going to do the narration, but the helicopter pilot. We got Wilford Brimley as Blair, and he's the senior biologist. T.K. Carter as Knowles. He's the cook. David Clennon as Palmer. He's a mechanic. Keith David as Childs. He's the chief mechanic. Richard Dysart plays Dr. Copper. He's the physician. Charles Hallahan as Norris, the geologist. Peter Maloney as Bennings, George Bennings. He's the meteorologist. Richard Masser as Clark, who's the dog handler. Donald Moffat as Gary, who's the station commander. Joel Polis as Fuchs, who's the assistant biologist, and Thomas G. Waits as Windows, who's the radio operator. The runtime of this movie is 109 minutes. Budget was $15 million. What do you think it made in the box office, David?
Ooh, 15 million. I'll say it made like 18.
It did close to that. It did $19.6 million. So, like I said, kind of a flop,
Right.
but it was up against E.T., as well as other ones. I mean, 1982 was such a good year for science fiction / horror
Yeah.
that, like, I think Blade Runner
I
came
think
out right
Blade
around
Runner
the
came
same.
out like maybe even the same day.
Yeah, and there was a few other films that came out in '82 that were pretty big hits. So it had a lot of stiff competition.
Hotbox.
Looking at the MCA video cassette release, which was probably the movie your dad stole it off of. The VHS cover art is the same as the poster cover art. If you've ever seen the poster, it's pretty infamous poster. It's kind of got this silhouetted image of a humanoid kind of creature, a person. And they appear to be wearing like a winter jacket and gloves and whatnot. But again, it's all in silhouette, except for the face, which has like beams of light shining out on it. And the top reads "The Ultimate in Alien Terror," just like the one sheet does. The bottom it reads John Carpenter's The Thing. Pretty simple, straight to the point box. There was other VHSs that came out. One of them had Norris's head, like kind of screaming.
yeah.
Another one might have had Bennings.
Oh, like with
screaming.
the like claw thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the classic one. This is the one that everybody knows and came out. Back of the box reads as follows. Oh, it does have a picture on the back of the box of like Kurt Russell and then I think Bennings on fire. Spoiler alert.
Benning's gonna burn.
Spoiler alert, everybody dies. Okay, back of the box reads, John Carpenter, director of Halloween, The Fog, and Escape from New York, continues his phenomenal string of hits with The Thing, a new version of the classic horror thriller starring Kurt Russell. It's set in the winter of 1982 at a research station in Antarctica where a 12-man research team finds an alien being that has fallen from the sky and remained buried in the snow for over 100,000 years. Soon it is unfrozen and unleashed, creating havoc and terror as it changes forms and becomes one of them. Put this frightening story together with outstanding performances, incredible special effects by Roy Arbogast, makeup by Rob Botton, and special visual effects by Master Albert Whitlock, and you've got a movie that Time Magazine describes as horrific. Okay.
Horrific. One word review.
Well, that was one of the things that tickled me about that back of the box was, is that really
It's
the
not really
quote
a
you're gonna
review.
use?
That can mean a lot of things.
It could be. It could be like that movie was horrific,
Exactly.
or the makeup effects were horrific. But the back of the box also is misleading because they don't find the alien. The alien doesn't unthaw and come after them. That's not what happens in this movie.
It was already found, yeah.
I mean, it happens prior. It happens in the requel that came out in 2000.
Right, so we don't actually see that ever happen.
No. So I don't know. I didn't like the write-up on the back of that. It kind of basically tells you what happens, but
Meh.
that's not really the story. What was the story of this movie, David? Why don't we go through this?
Let's do it.
I'll let you lead this. You're pretty familiar with this movie. I did just watch it though, so
I took a bunch of notes, but I could probably just speak the movie line by line. We open with like a really cool shot of a spaceship flying through space, and like sparks are flying off it, so we know something's amiss. Mm-hmm. And it starts to descend and crash towards Earth, and then we get a title card that is awesome, and it says John Carpenter's The Thing, and I think they filmed it using a fish tank, if I'm not mistaken, like with plastic lined, and I think they had like fog inside of it, and then they burned the plastic off so that it revealed the title. Yeah, kind of like a garbage bag almost, I think, is what they melted off of it. And it was all done practically. Yeah, it wasn't, there was no computer animation that could have done this. There's a YouTube channel that I watched that recreated that effect the same way. That's awesome. Did that. So yeah, it is pretty cool. And we cut to John Carpenter's The Thing. Yeah, and we get another title card. It says Antarctica, Winter, 1982. And right off the bat, we've got a helicopter that's chasing after this dog. And the dog's
Question for you. Yeah. It says Antarctica, Winter, 1982. Are they talking about our winter or their winter? Now, the movie came out June 25th.
Yeah, so I think it's their winter. Because Kurt Russell even says first goddamn week of winter at one point. So it's like, yeah, we're in June.
Yeah. So it's summer back where they're all from.
Yeah. So this helicopter's chasing after this dog, and then we kind of get, and this is how we kind of meet some of our characters. Yeah. Jed, I think was the dog's name.
Which caused David
a phenomenal
to buy
actor.
Yeah. Which caused David to get a husky now, and your dog's name is
McCready. And she's awesome.
Go ahead.
And actually, the dog is a Malamute, I think, like wolf mix or whatever. But Malamutes they look just like huskies. They're just bigger.
Okay.
So, Mac, our dog, is a little more compact.
Petite is what we like to refer to her as.
Yes. And as this helicopter chase is happening, we're getting cuts kind of back and forth to the camp, and this is where we start meeting some of the characters. This is where I think McCready's the first guy we see, and he's in his shack, and he's drinking, and he's playing a game of like electronic chess with Adrienne Barbeau.
Oh, that's her voice? That's right, it is.
Yeah. I like this. She wins, and he takes his whiskey or whatever he's drinking, and he pours it into the machine and fries it.
And calls her a cheating bitch.
Cheating bitch.
Because he was kind of smug about it. He's like,
I got you. Yeah, he's like, girl, you're slipping or something like that because he thinks he's going to beat her. Nope.
Yeah.
Checkmate. No. Checkmate. And then we cut back, and then we see like gunshots, and they're like throwing grenades at this husky. So they hear the commotion, so everybody from the camp is kind of like, what the fuck? And like heads out to kind of see what's going on. The helicopter lands. One of the guys gets out, and they're speaking Norwegian. And
dude, this guy gets out. This guy gets out, and he tries to go throw a hand grenade, and he goes to throw it, and it just slips out like a water balloon, and he's all, huh? And then he goes and tries to dig it up.
What a dumbass. Yeah, when he tries to dig it.
And it blows him and the helicopter up. And then the guy who doesn't blow up has his rifle, and he's chasing after the dog, and he's yelling something in Norwegian.
Yeah.
And none of the American outpost guys.
If just one person in that crew had spoken Norwegian, this whole thing could have been avoided.
Yeah, because in Norwegian, he's saying, everybody run, get out of here. It's not what it appears to be.
It's not a dog
some sort
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, it's some sort of thing. It'll kill you. Whatever. He's warning them. Yeah. So if one person would have spoke Norwegian.
oh well.
They didn't.
He ends up grazing one of them. He shoots Bennings in the leg. And then Gary, who's like the commander of the camp or
the outpost,
the outpost, he gets his gun and he like busts out a window. And just as the guy's about to shoot the dog, Gary puts one right in his head.
So let's talk about Norwegians. Not good shots.
No.
Because they've been flying around for presumably a half an hour trying to shoot this dog. Oh, they also can't throw a fucking grenade because one of them, it slips out of his hand, we talked about. The other one throws it out of the back of the helicopter and it goes, I don't know, about 5 miles away from where the dog was. So they are not good. But Gary, fucking dead shot.
Yeah. Boom.
Got a fucking revolver, busts out a window, and he's all, ding, ding.
Right in the head.
He must have played a lot of, what was that game Marty McFly played? Crack Shot.
Oh, yeah. Wild Gunman.
Wild Gunman.
Gotta use your hands. It's like a baby's toy. And I like when the Norwegian goes down, he does get a little death twitch, a little fish flop for us. A nice little touch. I like that. And that's when we get the first goddamn week of winter line. Like Kurt Russell's like, this is going swimmingly.
So they get Bennings wrapped up. They bring the Norwegian inside. They bring the dog inside. And everybody's like, what the fuck was going on?
Yeah. And Gary's trying to get Windows, the radio operator, to like make a call out to like the mainland, presumably, I guess, or some other camp to like tell him what's going on. But he tells us he hasn't been able to reach anybody in quite some time. He's like, we're out in the middle of nowhere.
Says, he's like, it's been 2 weeks since I talked to anybody, and it's going to get worse before it gets even better.
Yeah.
And Gary's like, well, just keep trying. And the doctor, Copper, he says, right? Because, it's Copper and McCready.
It's Copper.
That go.
Yeah, because he wants to go. He said the camp's about an hour away. Like, I'd like to kind of go over there and check it out and make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, and the meteorologist, Norris, is like, well, this is the clearest it's going to be for a while. So if you're going to do it now. Bennings, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Norris is the geologist. Norris goes with them to the wreckage
later
is.
When they go check out the site or the glacier or whatever.
And they go to the camp, the Norwegian camp. Well, first of all, McCready calls them Swedes.
It's like, you really want to save
this for
those
a bunch of Swedes?
They're Norwegian, Mac. I like that comes up a few times.
Yeah. So they go to. You know what? I'm Swedish and Norwegian. My ancestry, and I'm just like, and I can't shoot a gun either. So, but I'm like, they're the same fucking thing. Don't say that to like an actual Swede or an actual Norwegian, but they're the same fucking thing. It's like being America, USA and Canada. It's like, we're the same thing. Anyhow, they go out to the camp and they see the camp is like fucked. It's like all burnt to shit. All the windows and doors are open. Everybody's frozen. There's a guy.
There's icicles everywhere.
There's a guy who's killed himself by slitting his own throat and his wrists. And
dude, and he didn't just slit his throat. Like he almost he turned his head into a Pez dispenser. Like he went deep. Like he had commitment when he did that.
And all of his blood that's dripping down is all frozen.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Pretty gnarly. Do they show that guy doing that in the Thing requel?
Oh,
they have to.
I think they do.
They have to, right? Because there's also an axe in the wall.
And we do see that person put the axe in the wall.
In the prequel, we see that happen. So they did a really good job in the prequel of
matching everything up.
Matching all the details from the Norwegian camp. So they take all their logs and everything, and they put it away, and then they find this fucking body, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and the first Copper's like, "What is that? Is that a man?" Mm-hmm. And he's all burnt.
He's like, it's like burnt, and it's like two people like fused together almost. Is what it looks like.
And stretched.
It's like two heads, and they're all like gnarled up, and I don't know, but they take it, put it back on the helicopter, and they go back, and they bring that into the camp.
Yeah. And while this is happening, we see a really cool shot. It's one of my favorite shots of the movie. And I think it's while Superstition is playing, of the dog like walking down a hallway.
Oh, yeah.
I was saying, that dog can act. Like, he hits his marks and then like turns his head and like walks in a room, and we see the shadow of one of the crew members kind of turn and look in the direction of the dog. So we know that dog's getting around.
Up to something.
Yeah.
Yeah. The shadow, by the way, is actually none.
It's nobody. Yeah, it's just a crew member, right?
It's Dick Warlock.
Oh, is it? That's awesome.
It's Dick Warlock. However, it was intended to be
Can I guess Norris? Because to me, it looks like Norris.
Nope. It does look like Norris, but that's not who the intention was. Because originally it was supposed to be Palmer.
Okay.
And Carpenter was like, his profile is too, you can tell who it is.
Yeah. We need to be a little more ambiguous.
Yep. So he put Dick Warlock, who's not in the movie except for stunts, right?
Yeah, he's making nobody.
Yeah. And that way people can always be guessing. Because I did look that up. Because I was like, who the fuck is that? Because I thought the same thing. Nobody. I was like, well, that has to be Norris. But then I was like, well, that doesn't make... I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyhow.
And they return... Oh, and they also grab, while they're at the other camp, they grab, like you said, the logs and notes and stuff. And then they also find, like, I think they call it a portable video unit or something like that. So they grab, like, a bunch of tapes. And they're like, oh, this could be useful. We'll bring that back. And I like when they return to the camp, when we see the helicopter landing, again, we see the dog, like, watching him, like, through the window.
Watching him through the window. That was a really cool shot, too. Yeah. So they uncover this thing, and then they're like, wow, that's really fucked up. And they're doing an autopsy of it. But another cool thing that happens later in the night is Childs and Palmer share a room. And they're just laying in bed, and Palmer, like, lights up this fucking joint that was about
big-ass joint.
6 inches long. My wife goes, where did he get the weed? They're out there in the middle of nowhere. So he must have had it because he's always smoking weed.
Yeah, he must have brought quite the stash with him.
And they're watching, like, because they have no TV reception. So they just have a VCR. And they're watching old episodes of, like,
the game shows and shit.
Price is Right or some shit like that. And he's like, I know how this one ends. I've seen this one already. It's like, I could just imagine them just like, this is what they do every night. They're just playing the same shit.
Yeah, just getting high, watching game shows.
Yep. And then in the rec room, they have a pool table. So they probably play pool. They have a pinball machine, and it's Heat Wave.
Yep.
An old electromechanical pinball machine. And they have an arcade machine of Asteroids Deluxe. And a dartboard, I think, too. So they have kind of stuff to preoccupy them. But I'm telling you right now, if the only video game you had was Asteroids Deluxe, you would go insane.
That game's hard.
It's hard, but there's only so many times you can play Asteroids before you're like, this is fucking boring.
You're like, all right, I got the gist.
Yeah, Asteroids again? Oh, great.
Yeah.
And the pinball machine, I mean, it's not like the modern day pinball machines, you know?
Yeah, I never see that game get played.
Heat Wave. It's just sitting
there. In fact, at one point,
busted.
Actually, I'll say that for later. But there is one thing with the pinball machine that kind of made me chuckle. That happens later.
So they're all like hanging out,
smoking, playing poker and stuff.
Yep. And Bennings is sitting there like nursing his wound that he got shot in the leg, and the dog walks under the poker table because they're like playing cards.
Like brushes against him.
Brushes against him, and he's like, Clark, will you get this goddamn dog and move it to the
kennel?
The kennel. So Clark takes it back, and now we see there's probably like, I don't know, half a dozen, maybe 6 or 8 other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts it in the kennel. And I was thinking, like, hasn't this guy ever read Call of the Wild? Like, you don't just put a random dog in a kennel with all the other dogs. They'll beat him up. Because that happened in Jack London's Call of the Wild. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
It's like a gang initiation.
Yeah. But he goes in there, and actually all the dogs are pretty chill because they're all just sleeping.
Yeah.
And when Clark leaves, that dog just stands there, and he's kind of just staring at him, and they all kind of...
It's awesome.
Ooh.
Just mean mugging him.
Yeah. And then they all look at him, and this is where we see... And they don't hide anything. They don't leave anything to the imagination. The dog starts fucking transforming into God only knows what the fuck.
His face just rips open. It's like,
it splits open like the fucking Demogorgon.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, this spaghetti like shit shoots out of its back. It starts spitting out green fucking...
Yeah, like milky kind of shit.
Pus.
Spraying it at the dogs.
It's got this long, like, fucking tentacle that's just like... and grabs one of them by, like, the throat. And then these dogs are like, fuck this shit. One starts biting at the fence.
Yeah, just trying to escape because they're locked in there.
Yeah. The other ones are like, get me the fuck out of here. They're barking and howling. So Clark comes back, and he's like,
he's like, what the fuck's going on? And he looks, and he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
We get a good jump scare, too, because he starts to open the gate to the kennel, and one of the dogs goes, and like just jumps out at him and like takes off down the hallway.
Yep. And the fucked up dog starts coming after him, and he slams the door on it. or the cage door on it. And then McCready hears all the commotion and he goes down there.
Yeah, and he's not even in the room, which I think is interesting. And he hears it and he immediately like busts, takes like a can of beer and like breaks the glass and pulls the fire alarm.
Yep. And he calls for everybody else to get down there. Like he pulls the fire alarm, and then he's like Childs, who's getting high with Palmer. He tells him like, you got to bring
Mac wants the flamethrower.
Yeah,
Dude, do you
He's
see
like,
when all
"He
the
wants
crew
what?
when all the crew wakes up and they're all kind of like, oh, what the fuck's going on? I've seen this movie, like I said earlier, probably more than any movie I've ever seen. But just not this time, but the previous time I saw it, I noticed something for the first time.
What was that?
You see Dr. Copper's dick and balls.
What?
Yes, like when they get out of bed, he's like, he just has a shirt on. And he walks out and he's kind of like, oh, and you see his dick. All right, here's the part where you can see Dr. Copper's dick. And balls.
That reminds me of when I was in high school. I think I was in high school or just out of high school, but I was out with my friends one night.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but like my car was running low on oil. And I got home and I was like, I got to put oil in my car, like a pint of oil or whatever. And I checked my oil was low. So I start pouring the oil in there, and a little bit got onto the engine, and the engine was hot. And so it started on fire.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, fuck, what do I do, right? So I go running in the house, and I'm like yelling for my stepdad. I'm like, wake up. And he comes out, and he's like, what? And all he had was a shirt on, his dick
Just bouncing.
and his big old beer belly. And I was like, my car's on fire. And he goes, what the fuck? And he just grabs the hose, he turns it on, he sprays the car, the fire goes out, and he goes, put this away. And he walked back inside.
You too. Oh, it's amazing. What if he had a boner? Because he was sleeping and he had a sleep boner.
Thankfully, he did not. But yeah, I just remember seeing his dick.
So next time you watch this movie, be on the lookout for Dr. Copper's dick.
You know what else about Dr. Copper that I noticed was he has a nose ring.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
It's weird.
I don't know what that choice was.
He's a cool doctor.
But he's not. He's an old man.
He likes to party,
He's probably
though.
younger. He's probably younger than I am now when he filmed that movie.
He's hip, though. He's got the nose ring. He sleeps in the nude. He's an enigma.
Everybody loves Dr. Copper. He's such a free spirit.
But
going
back to what you said, Mac wants the flamethrower.
So Childs grabs the flamethrower and he goes down there. And, dude, this fucking dog creature is huge now. And it's got like a couple of them, like, I don't know, like infused, like they've come together and they're like infused. And doesn't it climb out through the ceiling?
Yeah,
like
it
one
busts
part
through
of
the
it?
ceiling and like crawls away. But meanwhile, there's another dog that's like kind of transforming and looks disgusting. And he's like,
looks like
"Torch
a
it."
ball sack.
It does look like a ball sack. It's like Dr. Copper's nut sack.
That was foreshadowing. They got Rob Bottin in there, and he's all
Botine.
Botine, whatever. They got him in
Can
there.
you model it after his balls?
Can you model it after Copper's
Like Richard Dysart, get in here, and he's still like in full Winnie the Pooh mode. He doesn't have his pants on. He's like looking at it. He's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we can do that."
Is it Botine? It's not Bottin?
No, it's Botine.
What kind of pretentious bullshit is that? It's fucking Bottin.
I thought it was Bottin for the longest time. In fact, I think in episode 4 or whatever, I think it's what I called him. And then I heard him say his own name in an interview or something. I was like, oh,
how does he know? He doesn't know how to pronounce
That's true.
it.
He doesn't know shit.
Yeah.
Stick to makeup. You don't know shit about names.
The dog gets burnt. Childs ends up.
Yeah, he torches his ass.
And there's kind of a cool scene where it's like the camera as the point of view of the monster, and it's coming right at Childs, and he's just like, "Fuck this shit!"
Yeah, it torches it. And then
that
we
gets
get
torched.
Yeah, and then it's like next day or next morning, and Blair is like kind of explaining what is happening. 'Cause he's examining it, and he's like, "Dude, this is like a this animal or whatever it is, this thing was trying to imitate these dogs. Like, this is an organism that can imitate other organisms. And they're all like, what?
Yeah, and then they start looking over all the Norwegians' data and the video cassettes and everything, and they come to find out. This is when Norris, who's the geologist, says like they were digging for something.
They see like a map. They're like, they were digging in this area. We should go check that out. Oh, and also while that's happening, Blair has a really good moment with Clark, because like he kind of explains like this thing can imitate other creatures, and he's like, hey Clark, like why wasn't the dog in the kennel? And he's like, oh, he was just kind of wandering around the camp all day. He's like, and I like he asked him like, how long were you alone with that dog? And he's like, I don't know, an hour and a half. And
and he's like, where was
the hell are you
dog?
looking at me like that for? And he's like,
yeah,
no reason.
Blair starts to do some fucking biologist research bullshit. And he's like, I don't know if this happens right now, but he's like typing at the computer.
It's pretty soon. Yeah.
It's like the graphics of fucking asteroids. And it's it's like these cells, and one's labeled human and one's labeled, or dog. One's labeled dog and one's labeled alien. And then it's like they slowly get together, and then it's like assimilation complete. It's like, oh, that explains everything. Your fucking stupid 1982 graphic.
Those 82 computers can do anything.
They find the McCready and Norris, and who else goes with them?
Yeah, I was trying to figure this out too, because the third person never speaks.
Is it Bennings?
I can't remember, and it's
No,
funny.
it can't be Bennings.
Was it
He's
Gary?
injured.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it might have even been Copper again. I don't know. But yeah, there's
I
a
don't know
third.
who
There's
it
a third
was.
person, but
There's
that
a
person
third
doesn't really
person,
matter in this scene.
And they're all bundled up.
Yeah.
But they find where the alien ship was. And
Yeah,
then they
it's
find
still there.
where-
Like they're like, that's a fucking spaceship.
Yeah, where the alien ship is. And then they find where the cutout of the ice that the Norwegians had brought back. And I don't know if we touched on this, but at the Norwegian base there was
Oh, yeah, they
the
find
ice.
a giant ice block. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was something that was in it, and it's no longer in it.
Yeah.
So they go back to, and
So
this is where
they figure it out. They're like, okay, this is a spaceship. That was a fucking alien. It got out. Froze in the ice. They got it out, and that's what we're up against now. We got a fucking shape-shifting alien. Awesome.
Yeah, and even McCready's like, the spaceship crashed, because Norris says this crash happened. This has been in here for like over 100,000 years,
Right.
based on the ice formations and everything. And McCready tells everybody, he's like, look, that thing fucking crashed here 100,000 years ago, got dragged out, climbed out, whatever the fuck happened, and was frozen in the ice until the Norwegians or the Swedes dug him up.
Yeah, but it wasn't actually dead.
And it wasn't dead, because when it thawed out, it got a hold of everybody.
Right.
Also, Blair has been doing some calculations, and he calculates that if this fucking organism or whatever the hell it is, this alien gets out into the real world. Well, first he calculates that the odds of somebody,
Like at least one person in the camp being infected. Yeah.
is 75%.
He's like, ugh.
And then he's like, if this gets out into the real world, everybody will be infected within, what do you say,
27,000 hours. Yeah, the entire world population.
Which estimate, I did the math, it's a little over 3 years. I think this happens right here. I'm not sure, but after McCready explains everything and Blair has his like moment of revelation, people are like talking about like, hey, have you seen Blair?
Yeah,
Blair,
like,
like,
we haven't
goes
seen him in a
crazy.
while. Oh, and also in the scene, like I think it's in the scene where McCready's kind of explaining stuff. Knowles kind of pokes his head in. And he's like, "Which one of you fucking rat bastards threw his dirty drawers in my kitchen trash can?" And he like, and this is the part he throws the dirty undies onto the pinball machine. And I was like, "Oh, no respect for pinball."
Well, McCready looks at him, and they're all torn to shit.
Yeah, and there's no name tag, like it's been torn off. So he's like,
Fuchs is helping out Blair, because they're both biologists, right? And he's helping out to find out like what's going on. And Fuchs goes to McCready. Like everybody goes to McCready for his leadership skills. And I don't know, it's not really explained in the movie, but I get a sense that McCready was like part of, I don't know, like I was thinking about his backstory today, and like what I just kind of assume it's like I feel like he used to be in the Marines or the Army or something.
Yeah,
and maybe
I
he's
think
a
that
Vietnam
actually
vet,
is. Yeah, I think he was a Vietnam vet.
and he saw some shit, and he's an alcoholic now,
Yeah.
and he's just doing this job as a pilot because that's what he does.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a pilot, and so they all look to him for like leadership almost because it's like, well, he was in the service,
Right.
Maybe he was a fucking captain or some shit like that for the Army, and I don't know. They all trust him to a certain extent at this point. And so Fuchs comes to him and he's like, look, I've been working with Blair and something's not right. And he's like, I look through he's locked himself away and I've been looking through these notes here and this is what the Norwegians wrote and this is what Blair wrote. And I don't know. He starts explaining some shit to
He
McCready.
says like that thing that we like brought over here, it's not dead. Mm-hmm. So I think McCready's kind of like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then while that's happening, Bennings and Windows, they're like in the room where that burnt corpse is like covered up. And I think they're getting something like out of a supply room or something. And Bennings says to Windows, like, hey, go get the keys from Gary. I need to get some stuff. There's like a whole thing that happens throughout the movie about like keys, like who had the keys. And like, so that's another fun part of this movie is trying to follow like, okay, who's got the keys?
Yeah.
So Windows goes to go get the keys. And then we see the blanket that's over the dead body start to
The
move.
Norwegian, the one that they got back from the Norwegians.
Yeah, the two-faced, burnt to crisp
and it
Norwegian
moves.
guy. Yeah, we're like, oh, fuck.
And then it like drips down some like goo.
Yeah, it's gross. Windows comes back and he's like, hey, Bennings, I got the, and he looks up and Bennings is like covered in
Fucked up.
gelatinous goo with like tentacles and shit coming out of him and like kind of writhing. And he's like, oh, fuck. And something I
goes to
really
grab-
like is before Windows runs out of the room, you don't see it, but you hear it. You hear the sound of keys being dropped on the
Dropping.
floor. So the keys are now out of Windows' hands. So then he runs out and he's like, it's Bennings. So everybody kind of like, I don't know if they do the alarm again. I think they do. And they find Bennings out in the snow.
Well, they come back to the room and Bennings isn't
Oh yeah,
there.
he's gone. And he's like, I
And
swear to God,
the
he was
window's
here.
busted out.
Yeah.
So they go outside and Bennings is outside and they're like, Bennings? And that's when he looks at McCready and he's got like these fucking tentacle hands.
Yeah.
And he just does the fucking, what's that movie? The
I don't know,
pod
but I like
people.
that.
Remember the pod people?
Oh
Like,
yeah, the body snatchers or whatever.
yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That Donald Sutherland scream at the end.
Yeah.
He's all. And fucking McCready doesn't waste a second. He's just like,
It's just like a
He lights him
boss.
on
He
fire.
dumps over a barrel of
Can of
kerosene on
kerosene?
him,
Yeah.
and then just grabs a flare and torches his ass.
yep. Lights him up, and he dies.
Yeah, like oh god.
So then they're like, let's see.
So then like there's
Hold on.
Mac is out. I think this is where he talks to Fuchs or whatever. It's all kind
Yes,
of
this is where he talks to Fuchs, and he's like, Blair is up to something. I don't know what's going on with him. Well, then they also see that Blair, or who they think was Blair.
Fuchs goes back in, I think, and Mac is out there by himself, and he sees somebody like running away
With
from
an
the
axe.
helicopter with an axe, and he's like, yeah, I think he's even like Blair.
Yep, and he goes to the helicopter, and he's destroyed the helicopter.
Yeah, he's like,
So McCready goes
wonderful.
back in, and he goes, Childs, go check if the tractors are down also, because if he got the helicopter, he might have destroyed the tractors.
Well, does he even tell him? I don't think he brings that up. I think Childs
I
takes
thought-
it upon himself. Well, maybe he does.
I thought
'cause,
he
like,
does.
While he's checking out the helicopter, he hears gunshots, and then he jumps off of the helicopter. He's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, well, yeah. So they go back in, or he goes back in, and then they have that confrontation with Blair. But I think at that point, then he tells Childs, go check the
okay.
tractors to see that. But yes, so Blair is going batshit crazy. He's got the axe, and he's destroying all the radios, and
Yeah,
he's
and he's
also
got a
beat the shit
gun,
out of
yeah.
Windows.
Yes.
Windows is like past, like all fucked up, but Blair's got an axe, and he's like just saying random shit. He's like, I can't trust any one of you motherfuckers.
That
And
thing
he's
didn't
like,
want to be a dog. It wanted to be one of us.
yeah, he's like going nuts.
It's like, none of you know what's going on, but I do.
So,
is it Childs that tries to talk to him and he goes, I'll
McCready
kill
goes-
you.
McCready goes, Childs, go around to the map room and distract him. Just talk to him. And so Childs goes around there and he's like, hey, Blair, you just got to relax. And he pulls out a gun and he starts shooting
Shoots
at him.
I'll kill
He's like,
you.
I'll kill you.
I like how he runs out of bullets and he just throws the gun at him.
Yeah. And right when he runs out of bullets is when Mac gets a table and he like slams Blair up against the wall with a table, but Blair's got an axe and da. Ultimately, Mac knocks out Blair.
Yeah, gives him a couple of the
Yep. And they tie him up. They end up taking him out to the tool shed, right?
Yeah, like a shack or whatever like that, and they board up the windows and they're gonna lock him in there for his own safety.
And theirs.
Yeah.
But they leave him a bottle of vodka and I think some food.
I think somebody even says, like, why don't we put him in your shack, Mac? And he's like, I don't want him in my shack.
Yeah, he does
What
say
are you
that.
talking about?
I thought it was kind of interesting, though, that Mac doesn't sleep with everybody else. He's got his own shack.
Yeah, he's a loner. And then he has a good conversation with Blair because Blair is calm at this point. But he gives McCready some advice. He's like, you need to watch Clark. Like, watch him close.
Watch Clark. Yeah.
And he's like, okay, thanks.
And Blair's telling him to watch Clark because Clark had spent the most time with the dog.
Yeah.
So Mac goes back in and he's like, we got to develop a test. Can we develop a test? He asks the
Copper.
doctor,
Yeah.
Copper, and he asks Fuchs, can we develop a test that can tell us who is one of these things? And they're like, yeah, I think so. We just need to get everybody's blood. Fuchs is like, I've been thinking about this, and if we just get everybody's blood. And they're like, well, we have the samples. We'll go into the safe and get the
we have
samples.
whole blood like in storage. If we mix a little everybody's blood like with blood that we know is uncontaminated, if there's some sort of reaction, we'll know that person's infected.
Yeah. Yeah, because something I noticed today, and maybe I noticed this before and I forgot, but they talk about how it's not like one specific creature. It's like multiple creatures that are like microorganisms almost, and that they're working together.
Yeah, the pieces kind of form the whole. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
the pieces form the
McCready
whole.
says something like that at one point in the movie.
Yeah, and that's this, and he does that at the blood test because they don't. They're all working for themselves ultimately, but they work together to just live and survive. But if they get attacked, they all split off. Mm-hmm. And that's what is going to happen right now. So,
and this is another like key thing because now Gary has the keys and he like physically hands them over to Copper.
Yep.
To like go get this blood test thing going.
They open it up. The blood's all been destroyed.
It's been sabotaged. But they make a point to say that the room was locked. So that means someone got the keys, went in, sabotaged the blood, left, and locked the door, and returned the keys to Gary.
Yeah.
So now they suspect, well, Gary, he's the only one. It's got to be Gary or Copper. They got to the blood. So now they're like prime suspects of like who might actually be a thing. So now Gary and Copper are kind of the prime suspects because they're the only people that really had custody of the keys as far as we know. So Windows at that point is like, fuck, I can't trust anybody, and just takes off running and tries to get a gun.
Like, well, he gets it and he pulls it out. But Gary, fucking crack shot that he is, pulls
the gun. He's like, I'll put
too.
this right in your head if you don't put that down. And he's like, you guys got to listen to Gary. He could be one of them. So they get him to put the gun down, and then Gary puts his gun down. And at that point, Gary's kind of like, I get that you guys, don't trust me. Maybe somebody else should be in charge.
To which Childs gets nominated at first, and then everybody, and then
Childs nominates himself. He's like, I'll do it. And they're like, the hell you will. And then, because Gary actually nominates Norris, and Norris is like, I'm not up to it. Like, pass.
Yep. And then Childs is like, I'll do it. And they're like, we need someone with a cooler head. And I'm like, what has Childs demonstrated maybe in the past?
Yeah. I don't know.
So Mac just basically takes the gun and he's like, I'll be in charge.
Yep.
So he just takes over.
Yep.
And they're all cool with it, I guess, to a certain extent. So he's like, hey, you guys go do what you got to do.
Yeah, and he burns, like, he kind of gets the whole crew together. They torch, like, what's left of the melted Norwegian corpse. And he has a good kind of speech here, too. He's like, I know I'm human, and I know that some of you are human, because if all of you were things, you'd just rush me right now, and this would all be over. So we still got a chance here. We just got to work together.
Yeah, well, I'll bring this up later. Because I was going to say, like, Well, I'll bring it up later. It doesn't matter.
And then he orders Gary,
Fuchs.
Clark, and Copper to be like tied up until we can find some sort of way to test whether or not they're human.
Fuchs goes outside at some point right around here, and he finds some shredded clothes on the ground. And the shredded clothes, to kind of like explain what that is indicates, is that the alien can't replicate inorganic material. So that means when it replicates a person, it doesn't replicate their clothes, so it kind of just splits out of the clothes.
Yeah, rips you out of your clothes, basically.
Yeah. So, or it can't absorb the clothes or some shit. Listen, I don't even know how all this fucking works.
All very
it's very
scientific. But you're right, though. He finds them, and it says McCready.
He finds them,
and
it's McCready's clothes.
It's like, oh, shit.
And he's like, fuck. And so anyway, McCready, Windows, and Knowles now are going outside to check on Blair. And on their way out there, they find all of Fuchs' stuff. And then they find his burnt corpse. And they're like, what happened? And they were like, he must have burned himself.
Yeah.
It's like, really? That's what we're going to say happened to Fuchs? I don't know. I was kind of
this kind of a mystery. It's like either something like torched him or
somebody
torched
killed
himself.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of like that, but at the same time, it's TK Carter's character. Knowles has the same kind of ending. It's like, what happened to those guys?
Yeah, I like that it's
we
kind of
don't-
ambiguous.
we don't ever
so
see it.
I kind of took it as, Fuchs had a lot of respect for McCready, and I think he thought that he was like the strongest and like best leader. And it's like, all right, our leader is now.
If he's gone, then I'm fucked up.
We're screwed. Nobody here has what it takes to get us out of this. We're all screwed.
Well, I guess that could be, but
Maybe.
we'll talk about theories after the end of this. They go out there and they're going to go back in, and McCready says, Knowles, you should come with me. We're going to go up to my shack. And they're like, why? He goes, because my light's on, and I turned it off when I left
turned the light off
yesterday.
when I left.
And he's like, okay. So they go up to the thing. Windows goes back inside. And I don't know, a little time takes. I don't know what happens between that and when Knowles comes back. I don't know what they're doing. But Knowles comes back and McCready's not with him. And he's like, I cut him loose. He's like, why did you cut him loose? He's like, because I found those shredded underwear up in his.
Yeah, and he brought him with him. He like had him in his shirt, and it says McCready. He's like, I found this like stashed behind his furnace or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like he didn't see me find him. So then I as we left, and I like that he literally cut him loose. Like they use ropes to kind of get through in the storm to find where they're going, and he just cut the rope behind him and took off.
Yep. So now McCready's out there, and it's like 40 below, and he doesn't have a rope, so he can't find his way back. And they're like, he's gonna die. And Childs is like, well, if he dies, he dies.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck is he doing out there? And basically says like he would do the same if it was me or you.
Mm-hmm.
Mac starts knocking on the door, and he's like, let me in. And they're like, don't open that door. And Windows is like, but what if he's okay? What if it's like not? What if it's all a big
what if we're wrong
misunderstanding?
about him? And like Child's like, then we're wrong.
Yep. If we're wrong, we're wrong. But McCready has the keys. And they can't get into the door, and McCready busts through the window from the outside and gets in, and Childs can't bust down the door, but Childs grabs an axe, and he's like, McCready, you're fucking dead. And he knocks the door down, and McCready's standing there like frozen. Like his beard's all fucking frozen. He's all frozen. But he's got like, I don't know, half a fucking pound of dynamite.
He has several sticks.
And it's like a cartoon. And he's got a flare. And he's like, one of you motherfuckers. He's like, go ahead and torch me because we'll all blow up. And he's like, and if you get any closer, I'm going to blow us all up.
Anybody messes
I
with
don't
me,
care.
the whole camp goes.
He starts thawing out. And it's right about this time that Norris has a heart attack.
Yep. Like,
And
oh, shit.
we see it earlier. Like he was doing something and he's all,
It's like, yeah. He was
But he has a
labored.
heart attack and he stops breathing.
Yeah, and Mac, at this point, like, they're all still kind of fighting each other. Mac's like, oh, shit, like, go get the doctor. Like, we got to help him.
So they start helping him, and they start, the doctor, Copper, starts, like, resuscitating him. And then he's like, get the defibrillators. And he shocks him once. And then he goes to shock him a second time. And as he puts the fucking defibrillators down on his chest, his fucking stomach and chest come open like a mouth.
Yeah, like teeth.
And they bite off his fucking arms at the elbow.
It's amazing.
And
He's
Copper's all, no arms. And
I'm
he falls
completely
over.
unarmed.
You know they got a guy with no arms.
Yeah. And he's
play
wearing
that
like
role.
a copper mask or something like that, right?
Uh-huh.
It looks totally convincing. It's
It
awesome.
does. Because the way that they shoot it, they only shoot one wide angle of, was it Richard Dysart?
Yeah.
They only shoot one wide angle of him without any arms, and then it goes back to close-up kind of just reaction of him. He falls over dead, of course. Norris...
Oh, yeah, Mac starts torching him because he's got the
Yeah.
flamethrower.
Well, at first he like grows a fucking head, like a long neck with a face of Norris,
Yes.
and then his real head like splits away from the body and falls to the floor, and that eventually grows like some fucking legs like a spider, and his eyeballs pop out, and he's like crawling
Shimmying away.
Mac, ultimately they flamethrow him, right? He makes him wait. He's like, wait a second. And then he flamethrows him, kills him. The spider goes crawling away, and Palmer just looks at him. He's like, you got to be fucking kidding. Isn't that what he says? You
Yeah,
gotta be
that's a great line. Yeah, you got to be fucking kidding.
So they flamethrow the spider head of Norris. And now comes the big scene. I mean, that was a big scene, too.
Oh, yeah,
That's a pretty
yeah.
shocking scene. But kind of the most famous scene is the blood test scene. And so Mac has people tied up, right? He tied up
Clark. Well, no, Clark's not tied up. He's
Gary.
got Gary, and I think at this point,
I think he ties up Childs.
he starts to, because he starts like giving orders, and at first, like I think Gary's like, "Hey, like let's all rush him."
Yeah.
Something like that. And I think Clark is like, "Hey, wait, hold on, like why don't we listen to Mac?" But meanwhile, like while he's like talking to Mac, saying like, "Hey, everybody, like let's listen to him," he's got a scalpel in his hand that he's kind of tucking away. So it's like, oh, he's gonna make some sort of move.
Yeah,
And then,
well, he does.
He does say he's gonna tie Childs up, I think, because he's like, "The hell you are." He's like, "Well, then I'm gonna have to kill you." And he's like, "Well, then go ahead and kill me." And he like puts the gun to him. He's like, I mean it." And he's like, all right. And then that's when Clark, from behind, I think, tries to rush McCready, and he just turns and just
Right between the eyes.
shoots him right in the face.
Yep. So now Clark's dead. So they got Clark and Copper's bodies. Like,
Oh yeah, they
set
do tie
aside.
Clark up though, because I think he's like, tie him down, Windows or Palmer. I think he's like, they're dead, Mac.
Yeah, he does. They tie him down. But then they start doing the test. And so they test. Windows is the first to get tested. And I do love Windows' reaction because he's like so nervous about it.
He's the first one. Like he doesn't know like what's gonna
what's
happen.
gonna fucking happen? What if it is? What if I am one of them?
Yeah.
So he tests them, and how he tests them is he's got a copper wire and he heats it up, and he's going to touch the blood because this is when he gives the speech about how it's all individual cells, and if they're being attacked, they're going to do what humans do.
Yeah, run.
Or what living things do, and that's run or try to defend themselves. Because when you and I bleed, it's just tissue. But when one of those things bleeds, it's all living organisms. So he takes the wire and he heats it up because it doesn't like heat, and he puts it in Windows thing, and it just goes tss.
And Windows like,
Whoo! Thank God.
oh good.
I think they do. He does himself next. He goes, now I'm going to show you what I know to be true.
Yep.
He does himself, and then he does Knowles. And then
He tests after himself. He tests Copper. He's like, oh, let's test a couple of these dead guys.
Oh, he tests Copper and Clark, and then Child says something like,
Clark was human, which makes you a murderer, don't it?
yeah. And then somebody says, test me, and he's like, I'll test you last.
Gary. He's like,
Yeah,
oh, it's just all a crock of shit. Doesn't prove anything. He's like, I thought you might say that, Gary. You're the only one who could have gotten to that blood. We'll save you for last. And he's like, Palmer
And that's
now.
when he's going to test Palmer.
Yep.
And he goes to test Palmer, and he sticks it in. And it's kind of like on the offbeat. He's like, yeah, we'll test you last. And he goes and expecting the same result. And it's like this fucking blood clot just goes. And he's like, holy shit. And that's when Palmer, who's tied up next to Gary and Childs,
Yeah.
starts fucking flipping out. He starts convulsing.
His fist
Shit
flopping.
starts spaghetti starts fucking coming out of his body.
His face starts melting.
Yeah. And it melts and it turns into like giant teeth. And he gets
His
free.
head like opens and bites.
he gets
because
free,
Windows
he
got
grabs-
the flamethrower. And he's like, Windows, blast him.
Windows can't work a fucking flamethrower. Neither can McCready at this point for some reason. They're all fucking scared.
This is like malfunctioning. And Windows just can't. He's just in shock.
Of course it's malfunctioning. But anyway, the Palmer thing grabs Windows and starts eating him.
It's awesome.
McCready, his flamethrower starts working and he burns them.
Yeah, he flamethrows Palmer. And we get like a pretty badass firewalk.
Yeah, that was done by, what's his name?
The guy, something Caesar. We met him.
Sure.
Yeah. We met him at Horror Hound, right?
We did.
Yeah.
he
Tony
didn't
Caesar, I
sign
think
our-
was his name. I think
Yeah,
that was his name.
I think you're right. He didn't sign our poster, but
He did
we did
not,
meet him. We
but
stood next to him.
That's right. And then I like
he
that
did
Mac.
that firework.
Not only does he flamethrower, like the guy like walks out of the building and he falls in the snow, but Mac takes a stick of dynamite and throws it. And my understanding is like this was real, and like the explosion like legit like scared the shit out of everybody because I don't think they were expecting an explosion that big.
Oh, fuck.
So they didn't even see Kurt Russell when it blows up. He's like, kind of throws him back. Pretty awesome.
So Windows is dead. Palmer's dead.
Oh yeah, and because Mac goes back in and finishes Windows off because he's like kind of in the process of transforming, so he blasts Windows.
So Gary is left tied up.
Yeah, and then we
And
go
so
back
they
to the
have to-
test.
They have to go back to the test. Well, they test Childs, and Childs is like, "Give me free, man. Give me
Cut
free."
me loose, goddammit. And I like when they test nulls. Like I think nulls is the first one he tests. Like as soon as like it like goes, tss, it like immediately cuts, and then like now nulls has a flamethrower, and he's just like pointing it at Childs, like, all right, I'm gonna fucking fry you.
Yeah, and then when Childs gets test and he says get free, now he has a flamethrower and he's pointing it at Gary.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So they test Gary and Gary's clean. And Gary says, what's the, you probably have the exact line.
It says something like, I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch. Something like that.
By the way, can we talk about Homeboy's eyebrows?
Oh, they're like blonde or like white.
They're white and they're about 3 inches
They're
long.
very thick, very long.
It's like trim those motherfuckers, dude.
It's unruly.
I don't know if you have this problem. And you know, you have thinner hair than I do, so maybe and that's not a knock, you just have thinner hair than I do. But
true.
I have this problem where I'll get these straight eyebrow hairs that just grow really long.
I get those occasionally.
So I have to trim them.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
When I'm at the barber and they're cutting my hair, I'm like, "Can you trim the eyebrows
Get my
too?"
brows, please.
I used to be embarrassed by it, but it's like a normal thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I
they're like,
pluck
"Yeah,
'em.
no problem." I'm like, "Cool." Also, my butt hair. Can you trim that?
You shave my taint.
Just lift up my balls. I'm like, right here. I'll hold them. So they're all clean. So they're going to go test Blair now.
Yep.
So Mac tells Childs, you stand guard. I'll take Knowles and Gary. Don't understand this. We shouldn't leave one person. We should be 2 and 2 at this point. But, you know, I didn't write the movie. So, I mean, I understand movie-wise why it's done this way. But
Yeah, because he tells him if Blair comes back and we're not with him, fry him.
and Childs is like, sure thing.
You bet.
Like-
I've been itching to use this thing.
They go out. Blair's gone. The door is open, but the door was locked from the outside. So it's like, who could have opened it? They discover that there's some loose floorboards. So they pull up the floorboards and there's like, he's tunneled down. Nice,
Yeah.
clean tunnel. I don't know how he fucking did this, but he's tunneled down below.
He's good.
And he's tunneled away to the generator room, I guess, which is underneath the whole camp.
Yep.
There's like a whole substructure of generator. It's like a boiler room.
Yeah.
It's right about this time where before they go down, they look back and Knowles notices Childs leaving.
Yeah, he's like, I see him running out in the snow. Where the hell's he going?
And then the generator turns off.
Yep.
And like he fucking turned off the generator. So now everybody's suspicious, by the way, of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, what the fuck? And McCready's like, let's just go down and take care of this. So they go down there and they're starting to put up dynamite.
Yeah, because at this point, McCready's like, we're all going to die.
Yeah, because the generator's gone.
Yeah, he's
and
like, we
McCready's
gotta make
like, well, Gary goes, the generator's gone, Mac. And he goes, well, can we repair it? He goes, no, it's gone.
It's gone.
And they see that Blair has put together like a spaceship.
Yeah.
Like a little flying saucer. Like he's
because he wants to get out. You know what's cool is in the book, if I remember correctly, Blair is making like a jetpack.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
He just wants to leave.
Right.
And so because the generator's gone, Mac realizes like we're fucked.
Yeah. We got to blow
and
this whole camp.
He's also said that the alien doesn't care. It's content with staying cold and freezing again until someone comes and rescues us and thaws it out.
Yeah. One even says, like, with the generator gone, it's going to be 100 below, like, within the next hour. Like, we're going to freeze to death. So, we're going to
But the alien will survive.
Yeah.
And he's like, but if we fucking just destroy everything and put this motherfucker ablaze, he's not going to survive. So, Gary and Knowles, they're like, all right, I guess we're sacrificing ourselves now.
Yep.
So, they start putting up dynamite everywhere. Well, Gary's off by himself. Knowles is with McCready, and we see Gary like turn the corner, and Blair's right there. And Blair takes his hand and puts it on Gary's face,
like in his face.
Fingers like melt into his cheeks.
Yeah,
and he's like assimilating with him. Right?
It's pretty awesome.
They're merging, merging with him, and so he drags him away. Well, Knowles sees this, and he's like, "Gary," and he goes and follows him. And then Mac says something like, hey, do you have all that dynamite? And he looks up and Knowles is gone.
Yeah, and he's like, what
Gary's
the fuck?
Gone. He's like, what the fuck is going on? So he goes and looks for them. And then through the floorboards, it's kind of like a cartoon. Like when a cartoon animal like digs under the floorboards.
Yeah, it reminds me of
Tremors. Like, yeah, exactly. And out pops fucking Blair thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it's all like half assimilated and it's all, it's even got a dog.
Yeah, there's a dog head in there.
Up.
And he's got like a weird sideways head thing.
Yeah.
Looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something.
Yeah. And it like is screaming at him, and McCready goes, yeah, well, fuck you too. And he lights the dynamite and he throws it at him, and he runs and it blows up.
Yep. It blows up
and
like
it causes a couple more explosions because they had already put up
all the charges,
the dynamite. But McCready lives, and he's got his bottle of J&B, Scotch, whiskey, whatever the hell that is. And you have a bottle right behind you, actually.
I do, yeah.
What does it say on it? Does it say Scotch or whiskey?
I think it's, yeah.
You think it's, yeah?
Blended Scotch whiskey.
Oh, Scotch whiskey.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Right. And he's got his bottle, and he starts to take a drink, and then Childs shows up.
He's like, oh, shit.
It's like, where were you? He's like, I thought I saw Blair, so I went after him.
I got lost in the storm.
And he says, I don't know. They have a little conversation, and then Mac looks at him, and Childs says, listen, if you're thinking that I'm one of the... And Mac just stops him, and he goes, look, if either one of us were one of those things, we're pretty fucked right now anyway.
Yeah, neither one of us is in the shape to do anything about it.
Yep. And he hands him the bottle of whiskey, and Childs takes a drink, and there's just like a slight laugh.
Yep.
And we hear the theme. Dun, dun, dun. And then the
That's
end.
That's it. Yup.
Goes to black.
So good.
We spent quite a while talking about this movie, actually. It's been over an hour of us just going through the movie. You can tell that David loves this movie. He knows it backwards and forwards. In fact, David was like, I probably don't even really have to watch this in order to review it. And I don't have to watch it in order to give it what my review is. So, David, I'll let you go first.
Oh, my God. I mean, this is probably my favorite movie of all time. Horror movies, 100%, and it's probably, movies, full stop, my favorite. I just think everything from Dean Cundy's cinematography, like it looks amazing. I love that all the characters are nuanced. Like we know things about, like you said earlier, like nobody is just like window dressing. Like every character is kind of fleshed out. The score is awesome. All of the characters, McCready's just a fucking badass. Rob Bottin's visual effects are incredible and for the most part still hold up. Like there's a couple that look a little silly. But I mean, and then the tension, the blood testing is one of my favorite scenes in any movie ever. And it's one of my favorite scenes to watch with people who have never seen this movie, because you can kind of just feel like they're like, oh God, like what's going to happen? And when the Palmer test happens, everybody's always like, oh shit.
Yeah.
The same thing with like when you're watching the first time when the very opening scene where they're shooting at the dog, like, oh, why are they gonna hurt that dog? And then when the dog like splits open, it's like, oh shit,
fuck. Yeah.
I love everything about this movie. It's a classic. It's I can't say enough praises about it. It's 5. I'd give it a 10. Pamela Voorhees Heads if I could, but yeah, 5 all the way.
Well, I'm right there with you. I'm also giving it 5 heads. It's up there for one of my favorite films as well. Definitely as far as horror films go, or horror sci-fi, I put this in the same category as Alien every day of the week. Between this and Alien, these are the 2 horror sci-fi movies that define that subgenre of horror films. On its own as a film, both of those movies, by the way, are fucking perfect. Listen, a perfect film is also not perfect. There's little nitpicky stuff you can pick out here and there. There was even a couple of things where I'm like, well, he just had his hood up and now he has his hood
little
down.
Continuity errors. Yeah. And there's little errors. Things. Like there's one where McCready, like when he's talking into the tape recorder, says like, Windows found some shredded long johns. Like, no, that was Knowles. Yeah. But it's like, but also people in real life make mistakes and misspeak. So that's kind of how I like, oh, yeah, he just misspoke.
That's true. The other thing too is if you're watching this for the first time, you're not noticing any of that. But when you watch it for the 25th time, you're
picking up on all the little things.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to focus on this character this time. Yeah. And then you end up seeing Dr. Copper's balls.
Exactly.
So there's
that was
not
because
really
I've seen it so many times. It's like, this time I'm just going to pay attention to everyone's genitals and see what I can figure out.
You talked about Dean Cundy's cinematography, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a few shots that I was like, wow, those are really good. One of them in particular is when Richard Masur, Clark, grabs the scalpel, and we see him do it, and it's like in the foreground, and then we have McCready like in the middle, and I don't remember if it's Knowles or Childs.
That depth of field kind of shot.
Yeah, there's like 3 different distinct things that we're looking at, and if you're not looking, you could totally miss Richard Masur grab the scalpel and like hold it right there. I mean it's pretty obvious, but you could miss it. Because just the way the scene is set, it's like, where are you looking, and what are you missing? And even the audio cues, like you said about the keys dropping, like that was done on purpose. There's a lot of purposeful shots and audio cues and everything and music that just make it's a whole, right? It's the parts coming together for the whole.
Exactly.
And the acting. I mean, you couldn't have had a more perfect cast. All of them do such a great job in all their roles in this film. So 5 Pamela Voorhees Heads overall. If you've never seen The Thing, I don't know.
Turn this podcast off immediately and go watch it.
Yeah, turn this podcast off and never listen to us again.
Never. And hang your head in shame.
I watched it. I think I mentioned this. I had to rent it. You can rent it on iTunes or wherever you rent movies. You can buy it $14.99, I think, digital copy. I also own it on a compilation DVD. I know I'm not a Blu-ray type of guy, but they've come out with many different Blu-rays.
I've got 2 different Blu-rays of it, and I have it on VHS.
Yeah, am I the one who gave you that?
Was it you or Alan? One of you did.
I think it was me.
No, I think it was Alan.
No,
it was you, because you gave Alan a copy of like Escape from New York or something like that. That's right, it was you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So speaking of things that we have related to The Thing, I think now is a good time that people who are watching this video are getting a special special thing that the people listening to this audio
Yeah, I don't get this part.
But we're going to do a little show and tell.
Cool.
We are both collectors of horror stuff. I know people that watch this channel, YouTube channel, also collect horror things, and so we have a few things specific that we've collected over the course of a few years. David, why don't you start with your costume there? We talked about that at Halloween time.
So I know we did the Halloween episode. I was wearing a good chunk of the costume, but there was some stuff that I wasn't wearing just because it didn't need to be in frame. So, but I'm going to show you everything. So this is my McCready. This is my McCready hat that I had custom made. It's pretty close to screen accurate. Yeah, so I had that custom made. That took like ordered it like over a year ago or something like that, and it took like almost a year to get it, but I like it.
And is that like, I know it's a new hat.
Yeah.
But it's the same style as the hat?
Yeah. It's the same style. Pretty close
like
as far as
cowboy
color
sombrero.
goes. It's a beaver felt hat. And then it's got the band.
Did Kurt Russell ever explain like what was the reasoning behind the hat or anything?
I don't know.
That's an interesting question that I would like to know the answer to someday. Is like how much of, because I know like Windows, we talked to Thomas Waits, and he was like, I'm just going to wear these sunglasses and I want to be called Windows, and John Carpenter was like, okay, cool,
whatever. Yeah, did McCready be like, was he like, I want to wear that hat?
Yeah, was he like, I got this hat?
I don't know.
I was down at some thrift store in Hollywood and I saw this hat and I bought it,
and I had to have it.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
And then I got the sunglasses. These are like the exact make and model sunglasses that Kurt Russell wears in the movie.
And those are specifically for like whiteout.
Yeah, they're glacier glasses, basically. Oh my God.
When you were putting together this costume, you like really did your research and nerded out quite a bit.
I did. Oh, you know what I didn't grab? Oh, that's all right. You can just imagine them. The boots. My boots are upstairs, but I got this. I got the same boots. They're like screen matched that he wore.
Nobody fucking cares.
These are my gloves. They're very similar. I don't think these are an exact match. They're pretty damn close to the gloves that Kurt Russell wears in the movie. And then I got the jacket. And the jacket is an exact. It's the exact make and model jacket that he wears in the movie.
The holster.
I got the holster pretty close, I think, as far as matching. The gun this was 3D printed by a friend of mine, so thank you. And he painted it for me. Looks pretty real though. Yeah.
I mean, from here it looks real. I can't.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's like the same gun that he has, just a 3D.
Yeah, we looked up
version.
those guns. We were doing a little bit of research for David's costume, and we looked up those guns, and they're not cheap.
No, yeah. At one point I was like,
rare.
maybe I'll buy it. And I was like, I'm not buying a fucking gun and walking around with it as a costume.
I mean, you're part Norwegian. You wouldn't be able to shoot anyway.
No, just kind of a combo. This is the flight suit that McCready wears, which for the most movie you just kind of see as his pants. And there's the blue
but it
hoodie.
is a top.
Yeah. It's the whole thing.
Yep.
And then I also got the snow goggles, because this is before I got the sunglasses. I was thinking I was gonna rock the goggles, but ended up going with the sunglasses.
And then the blue hoodie, right? Did you mention that?
Yep. Yeah, and the blue hoodie's underneath.
Yep. So that's pretty cool. Like, and I've told David this many times before. He needs to get a mannequin and just dress it up like that.
Also, the clothes that I'm wearing right now are also. This was like my alternate costume of like the scene where he's talking into the tape recorder. I think he's wearing
and that's a good segue to something we both have, which I think you have yours right there as well. I just got mine actually not that long ago.
Nice.
But these are the exact make and model of General Electric tape recorders.
Yep.
That Kurt Russell uses. He also has a microphone, and it's kind of up for debate what kind of microphone it is. I don't have one yet because I want to do a little bit more research, but David got one.
Yeah, I don't think this is exactly the one, but it's pretty close.
We're that nerdy. And I told David, I said, we should just record the episode on cassette.
Onto the tape. Oh, it's funny. The other thing, too, let me open it up. I also even got the exact tape brand that was used in the tape recorder in the movie.
Oh, you have to tell me what kind that is.
I will.
I
can say it right now. It's a Maxell C90 XLI. UDXLI.
The other thing I wanted to mention about your costume before we move on to the next thing, and we talked about the recorder, was your costume. You had the beard made.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I still have it.
You couldn't grow a beard.
Not something as big and bushy as like what Russell was rocking.
Not that quickly, at least.
No. And stay married. I don't think the wife would have liked a giant.
But David got a beard
look.
made, and it was made out of yak hair from some Russian woman.
Yeah.
like literally. Like, I will make you beard. Don't worry.
It's made from Dr. Copper's pubes.
You see these pubes?
You pause right here. You can see the pubes.
Those are pubes I use. Couple of things that I have that David doesn't have, because a lot of the stuff besides the costume, a lot of stuff that I have, David already has. So I kind of let him talk about it or whatever. But he doesn't have these figures. These are the Todd McFarlane figures from a few years back, and this one is the Blair monster thing.
Yeah, that one's cool.
And I don't have this. I haven't opened either one of these, and I don't think I will.
Yeah.
I think what I'll try to do is buy them opened already, so I don't have to do that. And this is the Norris thing figure. And two things that I like about these figures is that they're not yellowed. The packaging isn't yellowed, and that happens to a lot of these over time. But with the Norris one, you get the spider one. The spider head.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
The one that comes out.
That's awesome.
So when I got these, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool is if NECA came out with some thing figures, and lo and fucking behold,
they did.
NECA came out with some figures. David, why don't you show those figures? I have a couple of them opened right here too.
Cool. I was gonna say, I've got opened and unopened.
So do I.
Of all these, yeah. But this was I think the first one that came out.
That's this one right here.
Yeah. I can open the little.
I'll show that up close.
See, my flap was stuck.
I did a review on this too, and I'll link to that up in the corner here. But yes, this is the first Outpost 31 figure, and then there was another. Another one.
The second one that came out was, I think, this one, right?
Yeah. What's that one called?
This is the Ultimate McCready Station Survival one.
Yeah, so it's basically the same figure, just with different.
This is the flamethrower one, right? Does the other one have the flamethrower? I don't think the other one does.
I don't know if the other one has the flamethrower.
No, because the other one's got the hat and everything.
Yeah, that's right.
This is basically the flamethrower, and he's got a little blood test thing, and he got the wire.
Yeah.
And then the most recent one has like a lenticular box, which is really cool.
Yeah. It's the movie poster.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Figure.
Oh yeah, and we both also have the movie poster. We got that signed by several people.
Yeah, we do have the movie poster signed by most of all the living actors, with the exception of T.K. Carter, Kurt Russell.
Yep.
And Joel Polis.
Oh yeah. I have Joel Polis on the one that's behind me on the mini poster. Yeah. I've got
Richard Masur, T.K. Carter, Kurt Russell, and Joel Polis have not signed my one sheet.
Yeah. Same on my one sheet.
And then also this game came out a few years ago from Mondo, Infection at Outpost 31, and I have that game. David has that game as well.
It's fun.
Never opened mine.
Oh, you got to open it. It's a lot of fun.
There's a lot of rules.
It's complicated.
I need you to help me play that game. Like my wife and I were going to sit down and play it, and then I was like reading the directions online.
There's a lot to it.
And I was like, we'll just wait for David.
I played it with some friends, and we even kind of made up some rules where it's like, we'll simplify this a little bit, but it's fun. You know, it's fun. I didn't bring it, but I still have, when I saw that, you made me think of it, the original Xbox The Thing video game.
Oh, the
which was
video
fun.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last but not least, I think, don't you have the soundtrack?
Yeah.
Or the score?
Yeah, and I got a few different versions. This is the original soundtrack, the like original pressing. I
Like
found this at a used
1982?
record store. Yeah, for like I think like $8 or something.
How long ago?
Like this year. This was like probably I don't know, 7-8 months ago.
Is it worth more than $8, or is it still just worth
Yeah, it's still not worth a whole lot, but yeah. I'd have to look.
That's cool.
I'm guessing it's probably worth like $30, maybe. I don't know.
That's cool. Is the record in good shape? The vinyl?
Yeah, it is. And then I got this one. This is from Sacred Bones. This has got the original score plus like unused cues. So
Okay.
I have not opened this one. I will eventually. Last but not least, this is my favorite one. This is from Waxwork Records, and I think I did a video. I think
You did.
of this one at one point, but like it breaks apart, and the record is actually inside, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And the vinyl is like a blue and white, isn't it?
Yeah. And usually when I play this record, this is the one that I typically play.
Yeah. So that's a little, and then David also has Petri dishes that are behind him, and they're all signed by the cast members. We talked about the J&B bottle, and
Oh, something else. Hold on. I also got Replica Dynamite. It's pretty close to like screen matched. It's a little,
There you go.
a little orange, but yeah, pretty damn close.
So that's our various collectible type shit that we have displayed in our rooms. NECA is coming out with more The Thing figures.
We got a
that
dog
was
one
all-
coming, right?
They do have a dog, like the kennel
Yeah, that'll
set,
be awesome.
which would be cool. Which kind of leads into the next thing. We were fortunate enough to meet the cast. We talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, how we met a lot of them at Son of Monster Palooza back five years ago. Yeah, because I think it was the 35th anniversary.
Yeah,
of the
yeah, it
movie.
was 2017.
And so we met Wilford Brimley. Took a shit next to him.
I did.
We met Joel Polis there, Thomas G. Waits,
Keith David,
Keith David, Peter,
David Clennon.
David Clennon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the ones that we met at that time. And then, like I said, I started getting into it a little bit more, and David and I both started collecting original one sheets. And so we were like, well, we'd like to get, and the Thing one sheet, even unsigned,
It's worth
was
some-
a hard one to find and a hard
They're
one
expensive.
to like pay for.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
But we both found really good copies of them, and I think we both got them for pretty decently priced. But we were like, well, we got to get these signed eventually. Well, this past year was quite a year for us. We went to
A lot of shows.
Steel City Con, and John Carpenter was there. And that was like our total purpose for going to that one. So David flew out here. Plus, I live in Pennsylvania now, so it was like, well, that kind of works out. I had just moved here, and David came out to visit me and my family, and he and my wife and I went out there and met John Carpenter, and we got our picture taken with him a couple of times, and got him to sign a bunch of stuff, but one of that being the Thing one sheet.
Yeah.
And then it was right. Actually, before that, at CreepyCon,
Oh, that's right. That's when we
got-
got Keith David.
we got Keith David to sign our one sheets. I didn't get to meet him that time because I was in line for another thing, and it had taken too long. But David got him to sign my one sheet. So then John Carpenter signed it, and then we went to Horror Hound in Cincinnati. And after that, and a lot of the cast was there.
Yeah, David Clennon, Thomas Waits, and Peter Maloney, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, Joel Polis had to pull out.
And Richard Masser.
And Richard Masser. One of them had COVID, and I think the other one, something came
Masser,
up with his
yeah.
family member. So it's understandable, but it was kind of disappointing. But regardless,
Hopefully we'll get him at some point.
and we got to meet those guys and get our picture taken. And like why I segued from the dog kennel thing was we got our picture taken with them in the dog kennel kind of scene with the ball sack dog.
Dr. Copper's nutsack monster.
Off to the side. Yeah, Dysart was represented well.
Yeah. Rest in peace, buddy.
Yeah, unfortunately, the guy who played Norris, who was Charles Hallahan, he passed away in 97.
Yeah, he did. He died young. And Donald Moffat passed away, 3 or 4 years ago? He died fairly recently.
Yeah, he died fairly recently, and then also, how come I don't have Dr. Copper? Oh, Richard Dysart, he passed away 2015, I want to say.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there, maybe a little bit earlier, but they passed away in the 2000s. So those three guys, unfortunately, have passed away. But we got to meet the other ones. Richard Masur was supposed to be at New Jersey Horror Con, but now he's not on their website anymore. So I don't know if he's. I was
gonna fly out there I was gonna meet you at that show, but now he's not going. I'm glad I didn't book it yet. So I don't think
there's still some time. That show's not till March.
We'll
there's still some time. I'm thinking about writing them though and going, hey, you had Richard Masur on there and now he's not. Is he going to be there or not?
Yeah, what's going on here?
We met all those guys, got some things signed, but obviously our most important meeting was John Carpenter. Like, to me.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like the white whale. I mean, not that it's elusive because he does do signings and shit like that, but it just seemed like he was never where we were.
And he does do shows, but he doesn't do many.
No. So it was kind of nice meeting him, and we talked about that on the episode that we recapped that. But something recently that came up with John Carpenter, David got involved in. I believe this was a drunken night of David's where he was like, fuck it.
I think it was. Why
don't you tell us about this?
So I saw, this was back in October, I think, or something like that. Yeah, like it was like mid-October. Anyway. Probably alcohol influence for sure. But I saw that John Carpenter was going to be doing like a virtual meet and greet kind of thing where you would register and then you would get a chance to chat with him for like a couple of minutes or something like that. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. And I booked 2 of them. I was like, I want to talk to him longer. So I think I booked like 4 or 5 minutes to chat with him. And then the chat was actually on Halloween. Halloween day. Cool. So I had the day off. And like you go online, you get into a little queue and there's some videos that play and like they kind of tell you what to expect. And then like a person pops on and they check your audio and make sure everything's working. And then they're like, all right, well, have fun. And then, and then you go to a queue and you can see like a little countdown, like you are the 15th person in line, and you watch it like slowly get down to 0. I just remember getting like nervous, like, oh, it's going to be time. And then all of a sudden, like, there he is. He just pops up and
he's all, hey.
Yeah, what's up? So we talked for, like I said, 4 minutes. I'll play it right here, but this is my conversation with John Carpenter. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but if you'll indulge me, I had a few questions I wanted to ask you.
Good.
All right. So The Thing is my all-time favorite movie. I even have a pet husky that I named McCready. It's kind of a sickness. I could watch that movie over and over and over and never get tired of it. And I know you're not in the habit of watching your own movies, but I was curious, is there a movie that's like that for you? Like one that you always find yourself kind of coming back to?
Well, that's my favorite movie I directed. So
awesome.
It would be fun to watch that. Maybe I will one day.
Is there anything like outside of your films like that kind of does it for you where it's like, oh, I really love this particular director or a certain film that you kind of find yourself coming back to?
Oh, sure. There's a bunch. Oh, the Angels Have Wings, Vertigo. There's a whole bunch of them I love to watch.
Vertigo's one of my favorites too. Love it.
What a movie, huh?
Yeah, my favorite Hitchcock by far.
Yeah.
Awesome. Something else I want to ask you, because I know you're a big music guy, and I am too. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, they covered your Halloween suite,
That's right.
I think, like 2017. I loved it. I was curious, what did you think of it? And is there a non-Carpenter theme that you would be interested in covering if you had the opportunity?
Well, we covered Church's song, Girls, Bad Girls, I think it was. But I really like Trent Reznor's stuff. That was great.
Oh, yeah.
appreciate him doing it. Now, what do you do? Where are you're located? Where again?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. How are things there?
It's actually kind of unseasonably cool, but I mean, for Phoenix, cool is still mid 70s.
Yeah. What about your sons? You like your sons?
I do. Yeah. I know you're a big Warriors guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Suns fan going back to the Barkley days.
Yeah.
They always break my heart every year.
Well, maybe this year. We'll see.
Well, I remember one of the times I saw you perform with your group in Mesa, Arizona, and I think it was the night the Warriors were playing the Cavs or something like that. And I was like, John's probably backstage losing his mind right now.
I was. You're right. I absolutely was.
And not to rub salt in the wounds, I think the Cavs won that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a cool show, though.
Hey, listen, and happy Halloween, dude. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Okay, you take care of yourself now.
Yeah, thanks. You as well. Happy Halloween.
To you too. You going out tonight?
I do. I'm going to give out like candy to trick-or-treaters, so I've got like a whole thing sitting out front. What about you? You doing anything cool?
No, nothing. Zero.
No?
Okay, man. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, John. Take care. Bye.
Okay.
It's still awesome that you got to speak to him, and you had asked me, you're like, do you have any ideas for questions? And you're like, I was thinking about asking him this. And you only have so much time,
and it goes by really, really fast.
Yeah. So
but yeah, he was super cool.
It's so weird because you can never tell. He's very gruff.
Yeah.
He's very gruff looking. But he's been nice the time that we met him, and then so we met him, we got our picture taken with him. We got him to sign something. We got our picture taken with him. Then we got another picture taken with him. And all three of those times, he wasn't like,
no, he was pleasant. But I liked. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, to me, when we met him the first time and I got him to sign, I was just like, oh, and David was like shaking, and like it was like, I don't know, it's like one of your idols.
Yeah, it's like the old "don't meet your heroes" thing. Like it's like, what if he's mean? What if I don't? Yeah. What if I say something stupid?
And I don't think you did. So congratulations on that.
I was a lot less nervous this time around, for sure.
But it's just like so weird because it's like you want to talk to him, but I also understood that when we met him at Steel City Con, there was like 500 people waiting.
Yeah, so you gotta
meet him.
You gotta move fast.
Yeah. So this 5 minutes that you had with him, pretty cool.
It was cool. And I was pleasantly surprised when I asked him about like some of the movies that he can watch all the time, that he mentioned Vertigo, which earlier when I said like The Thing is probably my favorite movie. And one of those reasons why is because I also love Vertigo. Like it is also, at one point it was my favorite movie. And now like these two are kind of neck and neck. But I think The Thing probably takes the cake.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's cool. This is a long episode and I'm about to make it just a little bit longer. Because who gives a fuck, right? Every once in a while, we'll have episodes that are like 40 minutes long.
Yeah, and then we have a 2-hour one. Oh, and real quick, thank you. For Christmas, you got me the Thing artwork, which hangs in my bathroom. I sent you a photo of me defecating and admiring the art. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome for that. But I wanted to ask you a question. What do you think happens in The Thing? Now, there's theories abound regarding what happened or happens in The Thing,
like what happens
at the end.
At the end. I mean, I like to think that neither one of them were The Thing. They were both still human, but they're gonna freeze. But they're gonna freeze to death, and they and they die. That's the way I know there's theories like, oh, you can't see a child's breath. Yes, you can. Like I just watched it yesterday. Like you can see his breath. You can't see it as much as McCready's, but like he's breathing.
Yeah, and a lot of people were probably watching like a VHS copy.
Yeah, and I've heard things, and I think we even talked about it in the earlier episode about the thing with the drink that like, oh, there was gasoline or something in the bottle. And that's why Kurt Russell chuckles when Childs drinks it, because he doesn't know. He's like pretending to be human. But Kurt Russell was about to take a swig before Childs walked up, so I don't buy that either.
No.
It's fun.
And we saw this movie in the theater together a couple years ago. In fact, I think it was right before COVID started in 2020. And then you saw it in the theater with your dad for Father's Day.
Yeah, or for the 40th anniversary.
For the
It was
40th
my dad.
anniversary.
It also happened to coincide with my dad's birthday.
There you go. And so you've seen it in the theater. And in the theater, you kind of can notice more because it's so much bigger. But David, you're right. One of the theories is that Childs is actually a thing, which I can kind of buy. I don't know if I buy for the right reasons, but I can kind of like buy that he is the thing. And Kurt Russell laughs not because he drank gasoline, but because he's like, if he's the thing, I'm fucked. If he's not the thing, I'm still fucked. Another theory is that Mac is the thing and has been the thing this whole time.
And then he was sabotaging it so that he could go to sleep.
Well, let me posit this little situation to you, okay? The thing is an alien life form that is only caring about its own survival, right? And so it does everything it can possibly do to survive. At the beginning of the movie, there is some holes in this, okay?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, the dog runs up and licks Bennings on the face.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in the movie, Fuchs says, it can travel through any means. We should start just cooking our
eating
own
out
food
of cans. Yeah, and preparing our own meals.
And don't be sharing drinks. Well, the dog licks Bennings. And then after Bennings gets shot, Mac hands Bennings his
bottle
drink.
of the J&B. Yeah, he takes a swig.
He takes a swig, and then later on, Mac is drinking that same bottle of J&B. Mac, then when Blair gets locked up, Blair is not the thing, but Mac hands him vodka. And Mac takes a drink of it before, and he sets it down, and then Blair drinks from that same vodka. So Mac is doing all this stuff to gain people's trust and to assimilate with them. The other part of this theory is that at the beginning when Mac is playing chess, he kind of like, what is chess a game about? It's about sacrificing pawns to save the queen.
And thinking multiple steps ahead.
Yeah. So that's Mac, and he's not Mac anymore. He's an alien, but he's sacrificing all these different pawns. One of those pawns being Palmer. Palmer became an alien not from Mac, but from the body that came from the Norwegian camp. So there's like these two separate things going on. The one that came from the dog and the one that came from the camp. Now, you could say, well, that's how Bennings gets infected, right?
Yeah, because the other thing, too, is like, well, then if Mac was infected before any of this happened, like how and when? Because Mac is doing the chess thing before. Yeah, but Mac's playing chess before the dog arrives.
No, but that's setting up. That's just part of the movie.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
I'm not saying that
he wasn't a thing there. Okay.
No, he wasn't a thing at that point.
I got you now.
That's just a theme of the movie.
But how does he pass the blood test?
Well, he was the one who had the keys, and he somehow, he picked up the keys, and he somehow got the blood, and he got good blood. And he was able to sometimes, because we never see him cut his finger and drop it into the thing.
He just squirts a little in there.
Yep.
Head up his sleeve.
And instead of just him squirting it live in front of everybody and doing it, he's just continually gaining trust.
Yeah.
So he could have been the one that killed Fuchs also.
Could have been.
Because Fuchs started figuring shit out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I like about this movie is like you can have all these theories because it's so ambiguous. It makes it fun to talk about. I'm not saying I believe it. No, I think I still follow like the pretty straightforward narrative of they were both uninfected and frozen to death.
That's the third theory, and then the fourth thing that I wanted to bring up that people have sometimes used this movie as a metaphor for the AIDS epidemic of the 80s, and how. And actually, the most recent season of American Horror Story touches on this, but how everybody is super paranoid about everybody else, and they all think that they're gonna get infected, and so they're all like, "You've got it, and you've got it, and you've got it." And during the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, I think that's the way a lot of people felt, not just in the gay community, but in the whole country as a whole. I remember growing up in the 80s
scare,
thinking,
and the paranoia,
thinking how scared I was.
Yeah.
and not knowing anything about it.
And in the early days, like also like not knowing exactly how it's transmitted and everything, and then you get all these weird theories like, oh, you can sit on a toilet seat and get it. Like, no,
Yeah,
it doesn't
exactly.
work that way.
So I don't know if that was intentional or if it was just coincidental, probably just coincidental and the time period that it came out. But you can look at it from that lens and see that it could be a metaphor for that.
Interesting.
So that's it. That's all I got for The Thing. There was a lot of stuff about
Short
The Thing.
episode.
Well, it's one of our favorite movies, and you can tell that we both really love it. And I know David has kind of helped spawn the love of The Thing. It's rubbed off from him onto me. And I hope that anybody who's listening to this or watching this, if you haven't watched The Thing or if you don't appreciate it, I think you can go back and look at it or watch it for the first time. You know how it ends. I mean, fuck, who gives a fuck? The movie came out 40 years ago. But you know how it ends. But I know how it ends, and I've seen the movie dozens of times. David knows how it ends. We've already talked about how we watch it multiple times per year. And I think even if you know how it ends, you can watch it and appreciate the filmmaking, the acting, everything that went into this movie and the love that they had for it. And I think John Carpenter said in the interview, I think with you, I'm not sure.
It's his favorite movie of his own.
It's the favorite movie of his, and it was the most fun for him to make. Yeah. And I think of the John Carpenter films, it is his best made movie. Visually,
agreed.
It's the best made movie. It might not be my favorite John Carpenter movie, but it's definitely one. I mean, like, it's like picking your favorite child.
Exactly. Like, he's got several amazing movies.
Yeah. So, if you have any thoughts on The Thing, if you're like, hey guys, talk about shit movies again, tune in next week. But
oh boy,
if you have any thoughts on anything else, you can contact us. How can they contact us, David?
Twitter, Facebook, the Slasher app, TikTok, Hive. Search the Swearwolves on all those platforms. On Instagram, we're the Swearwolves podcast. We have the Swearwolves YouTube channel. You can go to our website, theswearwolves.com. You can email us at contact@theswearwolves.com. Or you can leave us a voicemail at 623-282-1851.
So for the Swearwolves this week, I'm Bret.
I'm David.
And also, I want to wish everybody out there a very happy New Year.
Happy New Year!